My name is Stacy Longwell-Sadowski, and today I am interviewing Virginia Craker Marsden. We are going to be talking about her memories of North Manitou Island. Today is January 21st, 2023, and we are at her home in, is this Benzonia or is this
Beulah.
Beulah? We're at
Yeah.
her home in Beulah. Okay, Virginia, thank you so much for meeting today and telling your story. We are very happy that you are able to share these memories with us. And this information will be shared with the National Park Service, Preserve Historic Sleeping Bear, the Leona Historical Society, and with 2 Weeks in a Hammock, which is our online video and audio sharing.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to ask you first, could you give us an overview of when you were on North Manitou, what age you were, what years this was?
I was very young. My folks moved over there when I was about 2, I think, and I started school over there, and I went to 3rd grade, and then we moved back. But I have a lot of memories of what I did over there in those 7 years or 8. And my sister married John Canucan. Mr. Canucan was a sheriff of Leona County at that time. He had a son, John, which my sister married. And in summers, I went back and spent summers there with them. And other than that, I still have a lot of memories of what I did do over there.
So you moved over there when you were 2 years old and stayed in
Till I was in 3rd grade.
till you were in 3rd grade.
Yes.
Okay, and what year was this?
Oh, boy.
Was it the 1930s?
Yes.
Okay.
When I went back, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to share your age?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Next month I'm going to be 97. So
Okay, wonderful.
that's pretty good age, I guess, for an old lady.
And so, why did your parents move to North Manitou when you were 2?
Well, I think it was on account of employment. My dad did just average work, maintenance, and my mother, and when I was, I don't know, young, maybe 4, she started cooking for the single Coast Guard guys. The married ones had homes and family, but the single ones, she took care of their needs for food and washing, whatever they needed, the young ones. But those young ones could be kind of bad. They'd chase us, the young ones, the kids, off of down, if we were by the beach, they'd chase us off the main dock, catch us and throw us in and jump in and rescue us. That was their fun day, I guess, of training, but I remember that really well. I never after that liked to get my face underwater. I think it was because of that, because I was young but we had fun, but not good fun it was training for them.
So, where did you live?
We lived in a little house right across, well, they called it the hotel, but in those days maybe it was, but not a hotel as we know nowadays. It was a big living quarters, big dining room, big kitchen. On one end of the thing was a big room that was a community room, like what they had. I remember their dances. Some guy would play a fiddle and some would have a banjo or whatever they could do on a piano. And us kids, we'd have to go to there, but we'd go to sleep any place we could find on a porch. And those older, my folks and all the people their age, would dance all night. And, it was a fun place too, because the community was like a big family. Everybody helped everybody, everybody knew everybody. And but we had hard times there too, especially that one winter when we were running out of food over there. my dad and two other maintenance fellows, three young Coast Guards, and my brother-in-law, and I think there was 11 of them. They tied ropes to each other. They walked across, each had a lantern, and took our kids' sleds. Each one pulled a sled because of the food. We were running out. And they walked all the way to Leland. And I remember that night, I could cry now because it was so bad. It was bad. Nobody knew if they'd ever see him again. But the Coast Guard built a big bonfire. And somebody said, I can remember, us kids had to stay warm around the bonfire. But somebody said, there's a lantern, they saw a light.
Oh my gosh.
I remember that so well because I couldn't understand why my mother and all the women were crying and hugging each other. And that was one of the bad memories, but a happy one. Okay, I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Now
but
we can
it
understand.
just brings back so many memories.
Wow, how long were they gone when they
They
walked?
left early in the morning. I don't know what time it was. It was late at night when the Coast Guard had built a big bonfire. And they saw each one of them had a lantern and our kids' sleds. And they were all tied with a rope in case the first one went down. And I don't know, it was late at night because us kids were getting tired. But I'll always remember the hugging and the crying and the happiness but of course I was young, but I remember them being so happy that they'd made it. And I remember we were running out of food, and my mother and all the women were making sandwiches for my dad, the workers, out of pancakes, making jelly and peanut butter, I think it was. We didn't have anything to make bread out of. They had to get food. But of course, there wasn't any airplanes in our boats. We, off in a distance, way off, we could see those three big tugs, the big car ferries stuck in the ice. So they knew that it was pretty solid, all the way, because those big boats were stuck. And that's all, I remember that.
Wow, because that is 9, 10, 11 miles. That's a long way to walk on the ice.
And then not know if you're going to make it or not. But they did. The good Lord was with them.
And that was all within the space of a day. They went over and
I think
loaded up.
But they left before us kids were up in the morning. And
Wow.
I don't know, it was late at night when they got back. But I'm sorry I cried.
Oh my gosh, that's a really great story. Wow.
It's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if that...
Another one tough one was my sister, that was 3 years older than I, had children's diabetes, and but she was staying, she was getting better. She was with the family over there for the winter. Otherwise, she had stayed with my grandparents over closer to medical. And anyway, she went into a coma over there on the island. Tracy Grosvenor was the only boat that went back and forth with our mail and groceries, whatever. And anyway, it was in November, and it got really stuck out there. The wind, November storm, if you know what the November storms are like on Lake Michigan. And anyway, the boat, in those days they had the SOS with lights and, the signals and stuff. Anyway, the Coast Guard came out and got us, and I remember being thrown from one boat to the other. in a storm. But the Coast Guard took us, but she passed away. She didn't make it. My sister over there,
What was your sister's name?
Leona,
Leona. How old was she?
8.
8 years old, and she
Yeah.
was older than you.
Yes.
So you were 5,
Yeah.
and so
But
you.
I can remember being thrown, and I think they tied us up or something, put something around us. But the women, my mother, of course, they took Leona first, and wanted to get her over. But we all went. They took a Coast Guard, took us over to Leland, and that was a bad time for everybody.
Yeah. So Tracy Grosvenor tried to take you from the
Yeah.
island, and then you
But
got stuck.
something happened to the boat. I can't remember.
Okay. And then the Coast Guard
Yeah,
came
they
and.
came, but I remember signals. You know them lights that they did in those. The Coast Guard was real active over there when we lived there. And I think when we lived there in summertime, there was 300 people there. That was with the Cottage Row. You remember, you wouldn't, but Miss Katie, I remember her so well because us kids could go up there. She had a gazebo, and she had trained, not rats, but what do you call them, chipmunks. And us kids could go up there, and she'd give us some peanuts or something. We could go sit in that gazebo, and those little chipmunks would come. They were so well trained with her, because she was an animal lover, and I remember that well. We just loved to go up there and be with. She lived alone at that time, and I think she enjoyed having company too. You know, us kids even, and that's all I remember. Now it seemed like there was a tree house.
Yes, right next to her house.
Yeah.
Yes. And who lived in that house? Do you
Well, another story. When my sister married John, I think they lived in Katie's house when she wasn't there or something.
Okay.
But they had this tree house. They had to stay in that tree house for a month or so.
Your sister stayed in the treehouse?
Who?
And her husband?
And her husband?
Yeah, because Katie hadn't left yet.
Oh, okay.
This is what I remember. You better.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, Judy told me that, I think. And then, but the tree house, we couldn't go up in that tree house. I don't know what it was, because they didn't want kids up there.
Mm-hmm.
But she was so good, Katie. It seems like she was a little person. She wasn't she was Dini or whatever. But she was good to us kids. And to the chipmunks.
And to the chipmunks.
Yeah, she loved her wildlife, I think. And yeah, I remember a lot of things about the island. But what other was on that list, I don't know.
So you lived kind of on the end of Cottage Row, past the
We
lodge.
We lived in the, what was a village, I guess they call it. We called it the Big Hotel, which was like I told you, community room and at the end of a living quarters, big living quarters, and then they had a room that had a store.
Oh, so you lived in that lodge?
Yes, after
Oh,
my
okay.
mother started cooking for the Coast Guard. We moved from that little house just across from here to stop sign,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh, so you lived in the next house for a while,
Yeah.
and then you moved
yeah,
into
the
the
little
lodge.
house. We always called it. I think that house is over there now yet. That they made it into like an office or something. I heard that. I don't know. We went over there one time. When the kids were little, and then later on, we just stayed in one of those Cottage Road houses when Russ started working, and six of us, my sister and brother-in-law, and Mary and her mother, and Russ and I stayed in one of those cottages and we took our bicycles over, and the guys could ride up there, but we took these old roads in that used to be what they call roads over there. And one day they let us have this car. And at that time, there was a white albino, two white albino deer over there, one on the north side, one, and we saw both of them that day. But they also had to take saws because Russ and John had to get out to saw so we could get through because the old roads were. And we went to Crescent City, which used to be Crescent City on the other side. That's what they called it. My aunt and uncle went over there. They stayed in that big house over in Crescent City. My aunt, my mother's aunt, said she couldn't sleep at night. That house was so haunted. And she said, well, we were scared to go over there, even us kids. But she'd say there used to be steps to go up one side and over and then down the other side. It was a long building, but there was houses, I guess. She said every night somebody go up them steps, click it, go across, and then go down the other step. But she didn't like, they didn't stay very long over there. That was Crescent City.
And that was in Crescent City?
Yeah.
Which house was that? Was that the house over by the big barn?
Yeah, it was up a little bit from the barn. But the time we went over there, sit down, we stayed in one of those cottage rows. We went over there, and the barn door had been left open, and there were deer skeletons all over in that barn, where the deer had gone in and the weather had closed the doors, and yeah. That was still there, and that was in 77, I think.
So that was before the Park Service years.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, what other special memory stories
Oh, geez.
do you want to tell?
I don't know.
The Iceman. What's the Iceman story?
Well, there was John and Nick, two old bachelor brothers that lived that way down the road from our gathering place, our town, I guess. Mm-hmm. In the wintertime, my dad and the maintenance guys had to go on the little lake. There was two lakes on the island. A big lake, they called it at that time, and Tamarack Lake. And they'd go over there with their little old truck and cut ice for the icehouse. We had an icehouse that they chunked ice and put it in sawdust. They said all the sawdust to, save the ice in the icehouse. Well, this Nick, he died. And us kids used to go up there because anybody that went to get a chunk of ice would give us a little suck, a little chip of ice to suck on. So that was our treat for the day, I guess. And Nick died, and it was in the summertime, and they couldn't get him across the funeral home or whoever was in charge at that time. So they packed him in an ice house to keep his body cool. Us kids were scared to death to go back to that ice house. But somehow, I guess we got over it. They got him over it. But that's the Ice Man that we always called the Ice Man.
Do you know what his last name was?
Nick and John? No.
Was it the Felins?
Yeah, I think it was.
Okay.
And
so that was the Iceman.
Yeah. We always called it the Iceman after that. We were scared to go near that, and we loved going to that ice house, we called it.
Was that the ice house that was kind of down inland a bit? Like if you walked...
It went down the road.
Yeah, away
right from the dock, and it was past the hotel.
Yeah.
The next building over, but it was maybe from here to the road from the hotel at that time, if I remember right.
Okay, so if you were walking from the dock and you walked up and the hotel was on the left, where was the ice house? And
the ice house was on the left too, but down.
Behind it.
Yeah, down the road, what we call the road.
Right.
Logan Deegan.
Yeah, the Deegan house.
Yes. Okay, he had an airplane.
Yeah.
And a police dog,
so,
a Shepard dog.
So was the ice house near the Deegan house?
No, the Deegan house was on the right
hand
hand side.
On the right.
That was down farther.
Okay, so this was closer.
Yes, it was closer to the community.
Oh, okay, so it was a nice house that was available for the village to use.
Yes, to get chunks of ice for their refrigerator.
And so was that Nick or John Phelan Which one passed away?
Nick, I think.
Nick. And what did they end up doing eventually with his body?
Well, somebody had to come and get it, but whether it was the weather or I don't know what they did with bodies.
Right, right. Well,
but there's 2 cemeteries over on the island because
Yeah.
when we went there, Mary's mother, she was born on that island, but of course
Okay.
she's passed away now several years ago. And we went to find those 2 cemeteries because
Yeah.
she went, and we found them with grass growing.
Mhm.
We pulled grass one afternoon trying to get those graves cleaned out. She wanted to clean them,
Mhm.
you know, but they were, I don't know if the Indians were born, I don't know who died over there. I don't remember Nick, other than being in that ice house, what they
Yeah.
did with them.
Well, and the cemetery on the south end of the island,
Yes.
there's a monument that's got his name on it.
Is that, oh, then he's buried there then. But I
Maybe.
don't know why.
Maybe. I mean,
If
there's
there's John and Nick.
John and Nick, and there's monuments for both of them. And
Oh, is there?
they used to be like wooden with like
Yeah.
triangular shaped tops on the monuments that were down there for them. Now, when you talk about going to see the 2 cemeteries on the island, was one of them the one way on the south end of the
Yes.
island? Okay.
Mhm.
And was that the one you were pulling
Yes,
grass?
yes. And Mary was looking for her, you know, where she was, her parents or grandparents or somebody.
Okay.
But there was grass all, you couldn't find any, you would never know anybody was buried there.
Right, right.
And we were pulling grass for a long time. And
Okay, 7 deer. What's the story of
well,
7 deer?
they planted deer over there. And they had 5 female and 2 males, I think it was. And so late at night, they had this old truck that they had benches that as many people could sit in, theirs could sit, and us kids on the floor. They'd go out to see how the deer were multiplying, how they were getting along. And so that was our treat for the night. Our day was to go deer hunting, and we still do deer hunting to this day. Them two and everybody, and that was a fun trip. And look at how the deer are multiplied over there. They have big hunts and everything over there now, but kind of not people. No people live there, I don't think, anymore. And Mileskis, they had a farm, Josie and Paul Mileski, and they had kids our age and stuff that went to school, but they had a long walk to walk from their place down to our village and then to school. And that's another memory that I remember. It's not too good, but the Mrs. Mileski had her mother living with her, which they call her Grandma. Well, their house and their kids, too much. It was too crowded and it was just a little house. They had this old chicken coop. Well, the guys went there, everybody helped everybody. You know, there was no any money involved, it was just help. And I wish it was like that nowadays. Anyway, they went and they tore all the stuff out of the chicken coop and put new boards or whatever, and made a room for the grandma so she could stay there. And I remember when the women went up there, my mother and I, they fixed the siding with old wallpaper or something, boxes, I know something. But us kids would get the best food because they'd always bring good meals, you know, to feed everybody. Yeah, that was the Mileski place. And I don't know if that's still there. I know they had the roses there. She grew a lot of wild roses and roses. And it seems like somebody, maybe it was Sharon, and then brought a rose thing back. Maybe that's why Sharon named her place the Rose Garden. I don't know. But I don't know what else did I do on. Oh, I got in trouble too.
You got in trouble?
Yes, because Fern Grosvenor, that's Tracy Grosvenor's daughter, her and I were the same age, and Clayton Grant, his dad was the Coast Guard guy. Well, the Coast Guard had a little ability. That shows on that picture of the old picture of the Coast Guard station. And they had new lumber in there and paint. Us kids got in there and we opened the paint up and we painted all our new boards. Not good. We got in trouble. I don't remember getting spanked or anything, but I think we got in trouble. They couldn't find us all day or all for lunch, and there we were painting all our new boards. Not good. And I do remember the Coast Guard, they used to have this one boat that was like a train track that went out into the water. And they give us rides once in a while in that big thing, and we'd go out with them out in the water. I remember that. And the Stones. Chicago had these big boats come in. And these women had these big, beautiful hats. And they didn't have trunks, or all they had was trunks. Gosh, I'm losing all of my stuff. Trunks, beautiful trunks. They didn't have suitcases or anything, trunks. And I remember that. And this one lady would come. Oh, I got another story about that boat too. This one lady wanted us to find pretty stones. Us kids would walk for as far as we could go. We were limited to go only so far. And we put them in glass jars, and she'd give us a penny. She wanted these pretty stones. I don't know what she did with them, but she took them back to Chicago with her. And that was our trips. We lived on the beach because we were right there all the time, and pretty stones. And anyway, that was another thing. And what was another thing I was going to tell them? I forgot about that now. There goes my mind.
Coast Guard rescue practice.
Oh, that was when them young ones chased us kids.
Oh, when they chased you off the dock.
They'd pick us up and carry us out and run out there, then jump in and get us.
They're teasing you.
Yeah, well, there was practice, they said. That's what we learned at the practice, but it wasn't practice as a kid. But I learned to not like to get my head wet after that. I still don't like to get, even though we were swimming out here a lot.
So Edmund Peters' teacher.
Yes, he was just 2 years older than my oldest sister. But they had then teachers they didn't go to, I guess, some kind of a college or something.
So Edmund Peters was the teacher?
Yes.
Okay, but you said he was just a couple years older than your
Yeah, he
oldest
was
sister.
so young.
Okay.
To be teaching, because when we stayed in that hotel, that had 6 bedrooms upstairs, and we had 1 bedroom for my folks, for my 2 sisters and me up there. And Lenora Ross, I remember her name, she was my sister's girlfriend. They always played, because Edmund, the teacher, he rented a room up there. He had a room. They always played games on him. One night they put bugs in his bed. One night they put snakes in it, or whatever they always played, because he was like one of them, but he was a teacher and he was young,
So they like to pull pranks on the teacher.
Yep, yeah, he was my first teacher, and we saw Edmund and Bernice not too long ago in Leland. When my 2 sisters were there, we went to visit them. And we talked about the old days then too. He remembered Carrie and Judy, especially more than me, but he remembered teaching me too. And I think he died not too long ago in Leland.
So, how many sisters? Did you have any brothers or just sisters?
I had a baby brother, or he was 4, but he passed away. My mother was pregnant for me. I always called him my brother. And he died in November, and I was born in February. And he ruptured appendix. They thought he had. They lived in Muskegon at that time, and she called the doctor. And he said, "Oh, he just has a belly. Give him castor oil. Worst thing you can do." for appendicitis, and I broke. Of course, in those days, no antibiotics or no nothing, you know. The only thing I remember is castor oil. Oh, I remember what I was going to tell you. I liked chocolate when I was a kid. When we moved into that hotel, it had a medicine cabinet in the bath. It had a bathroom even. We always had the outside toilet, and it had a cupboard in there, and I got in that bathroom. I got in there, and I found this X-Lax box of chocolate. I ate the whole box. At that time, there in the 7 rows or 6 rows of houses, cottages, was a doctor that came had in one, and he made me throw up. Oh my gosh, I sit on the toilet and throw up, and I was really sick, you know, because I ate the whole chocolate thing. But here I am. I'm still here. Wasn't my time then either.
You thought it was chocolate.
Yeah, I did. So I did get into trouble once in a while. But as it goes, it was a good community, you know. My life that I remember. Everybody took care of us. If we were hungry, we went in somebody's house and they fed us or whatever. You know, except after my sister died, my mother didn't want to stay over there anymore because I was just left. And so they moved back to Omena, Michigan. That's where my grandparents lived.
How many sisters?
I had 3. Well, with Leona, there was 4 girls and 1 boy.
Oh, okay. 4 girls and 1 boy in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And that counts you. So you had 3 other sisters.
Yeah.
And 1, okay.
Well, is that right? Or did I get it wrong? I had Judy, Carrie, Leona, and me. 4 girls and Buddy.
And Buddy, your brother. Okay. So were there a lot of children living on the island at the time? A lot of kids in school?
Not a whole lot, but enough to keep a school going. But in one room, the 8th graders sat there. Oh, and the 8th graders, they had a woodshed. And if them boys were bad, out in the woodshed, they'd go get a paddling. But not the girls, I don't remember. But the first 8th graders would have their little thing up in front and a grade, you know. He'd teach each grade, I think, that way, in one room.
So it was 1st grade through 8th grade
Yes.
at the school?
Mm-hmm. Then you had to go to Leland to go down. But then we moved over to Omena, which I went to school in Northport. And
so you went to school in Northport after you moved back to the mainlands.
But then when the 39, I think it was, when the war was starting over Europe, everybody moved down to Muskegon, it seemed like, because of the military. Everything went military. And boy, we went without a lot of stuff during that war. There were these little factories, made everything, you know, for military. And so people moved down there to get employment. And we moved down there too. And that's where these kids were born, and I was married and went to school, and so that's over, you know.
So how did you move back up to this area then, here in Beulah?
Oh.
How long have you been here?
Well, our neighbor down in Muskegon had a place on the Betsy River. You know where the Betsy River is? Over on King Road. And he had that one little room cabin, and when my youngest daughter was 2, we started staying. I was the first woman to stay in that cabin. It was mostly fishing and hunting, the guys. And but then I had 4 kids, we had 4, they had 4 in one room, too much. So we started looking for our own place, and we found this one, you know, this one and that one where she lives now, 2 doors over.
So your daughter's your neighbor now. That's
yes. Nice. Best neighbor ever.
Best neighbor ever.
The only good neighbor ever that.
All your other ones died.
Yeah, the good friends all passed. But we had good memories up here too.
Okay, I'm looking at the other stories you wanted to tell. Ice Survival Year, was that the story of
Yeah,
when the men went over?
Yes.
Okay. built fires for rescue.
Yeah, that was the
Same
same.
story. Okay. Crescent City. Anything else you wanted to talk about that, or did
I
we cover
didn't
that?
remember, other than my aunt saying that house was
The house was
haunted and
haunted.
scared us kids. It scared her too. She didn't like, they didn't stay too long. He was supposed to work maintenance over there, but she wouldn't take it.
She didn't want to stay.
No.
Horses and cows in the big barn.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that was different. The cows, the horses went underneath and the cows, or else the horses went up. Because that was our survival for milk, was the cows. And I remember Rex Canucken, he had to ride Sparky, was the horse's name, to go round up the cows every night to bring them for milking. And then once in a while he'd take us kids on a horse to ride them. I remember that. And I think they had every year they butchered 1 or 2 beef and pigs, pork, for something. And everybody canned all their meat usually because they didn't have electricity in some of the houses. And Coast Guard station they had a generator or something that they did their better electricity and stuff. And when we moved in the hotel, we had electricity first time.
2 spiders. What's that
Oh,
story?
geez. Another time I got in trouble. Those big boats from Chicago, they'd bring food in. One time they bought this whole big thing of bananas. What do you call it? I don't know. What bananas
A big
go.
bunch of bananas.
And anyway, they had 2 big spiders, banana spiders. They're big. They covered the whole bottom of a 2-quart jar. Everybody canned those 2 quarts. Anyway, they put those 2 spiders in each can. Us kids found them. We played with them. We let them loose. These spiders. Oh, did we get it? They caught them and killed them. They did catch them and kill them, but we got trouble for letting those 2 big. We thought they were pretty good, I guess, but not good. Didn't know they were poisonous or whatever they were. I don't know. Yeah, that was those 2 spiders.
That's a great story. I would not have expected big spiders to show up on the bananas like that.
I don't know. They did on that boat. They brought them in on this big. I suppose they brought them to that store, because when bananas come, everybody wanted bananas,
So it was very different on the island in the summer versus the winter.
Well, a lot of people in the summertime, they had that cottage row, and they had their families and friends and whatever, and boats back and forth, more so. In the wintertime, of course, not. And in the summertime, I was told, I think at 300 people at one time with the Coast Guards and the houses and stuff, and the farmers. We had the 2 farmers, we had 2 orchards. We had a little cherry orchard and a little apple orchard, a few apples. And they were good. And now that's another story I never told. Fern Grosvenor and I went and swiped cherries, sweet cherries that they'd sprayed with spray dope on them, And we ate too many, and we got deathly sick, throwing up out in the yard on account of that spray dope. We didn't wash them good, but here I am. Didn't kill me then either.
So you were telling me about John, is it Oyen? The one who was...
Oh, yeah, his mother. Oh boy, this is, I don't know. His mother was my mother's age, and they were over the age of having kids, mostly babies. But his mother, her name was Oyen, Pearl, it was a daughter. And anyway, she was pregnant. She had this John, this one that's younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I know. There was talk about this. Of course, kids, we didn't know too much. Nowadays they know everything, but then we didn't. And he was younger than I am, and Pearl was my sister's age, his sister.
Mm-hmm.
And there was Jesse Smith, and they were maintenance guys. They're Smiths and Owens and my folks. And yeah,
So-
it was a survival. I mean, it was a. When I think now, I wish it would go back to those days, kind of. Right now, the way the world's going, the kids are, and what's turning out, you know. I wish some days it would kind of go back that way, but it won't never.
So you said that you are the oldest living resident of North Manitou
but
Island,
right
correct?
now, yes.
Yes.
But what's his name? John Owen. He thought he was, but of course he didn't know where I lived, and we never had anything to do. He was younger, and you know. And I think they moved back to the mainland sooner than we did, even. Pearl used to live in Frankfurt. Other than that, I guess I'm done. I don't know. I could tonight. I'll go to bed and think of 100 more, but right now I don't know.
So I'm thinking of a couple other quick questions. So most of the time when you played as a child, you pretty much stayed to the village area,
Yes,
right? The village,
yes,
the
yes.
school, the beaches along there.
The two places: the little house and the hotel that we lived in.
So you didn't go around to the other
No,
locations.
most of the people lived down by the Coast Guard station. There was the Coast Guard station, and there was residents around it. Couple lived down the beach, you know, different walking areas. And yeah, I think that's it. I don't know that I remember. I remember it seemed like every place we went, if we were hungry, we got something to eat. Everybody treated us, everybody knew everybody's kids. And it was good living that way. But of course it was hard living. It was hard for my folks, really hard. And then to lose Leona over there. And
So when was the last time you were on the island? Was it in the 1970s?
77, I think it was. I think it was that the year Grandpa Marsden died, I think. After he died, we went over.
And then
But you could take a trip over. We had planned to go another time, but I don't know, can't remember what happened that we didn't go.
and you said also that your husband worked for the Park Service at
Yes,
some point?
later
No,
years.
what did he do?
Maintenance. He was on the maintenance.
Was he on the mainland here?
Yeah, yeah. He worked for Pete and Tom. I don't know what their last name, but I know he's foreman. He worked on the island too. They all had to take turns to work over there. And I remember the one time he was over there, and he was supposed to come home, and I was supposed to drive up and meet him up to Glen Arbor. I think that's where the boats, park boats came back in. And Pete came down, and he said, they're not coming, it's too rough out there for the boat tonight. So he was nice that he come down and told me. Yeah, he really liked working for the park.
And
Outdoor.
what was your husband's name?
Russell.
Russell.
But he was well, I liked it. He worked 33 years down Muskegon, that one place too. But then they sold and moved out, and then we had the old house over here, which he tore down, built their new house, and he got a job with a park up here. And he really liked it, and he liked the guys he was working for. And
No, what years would that have been that he worked at the park?
oh boy,
Is that into the 80s?
yes, he died in '98, and he retired in about 6 years before that, 5 years, he had heart problems, and so yeah, I don't know the dates exactly on that. I know when he passed away, I know that real well, but the dates for when he hired in and that I can't.
Okay, great. Any other things that you want to add and before we finish?
Boy, like I say, tonight, go, everything will come up, but right now I can't think of anything. My aunts, my mother came from a family of 15 kids, and they all lived until after my grandpa and grandma's 50th anniversary. Now this is another story.
Wow.
I have to tell you.
that's quite a
This is
family.
what sticks in my mind about that.
Uh-huh.
My aunt and uncle had built a brand new big barn. For 2 years it took them. They knowing that their 50th was coming up and all the kids were going to be there. And I remember I was 12, 11 and 12, turning 12, and this went on for 2 days. But this big barn, they never used it. They saved it. The middle part was for dancing and polka, cedar, you know what that is. And anyway, what stands in my mind the most was my grandpa and grandma sitting on a chair together and all their 15 kids dancing around.
Oh, wow. Wow. Was that down in Muskegon area?
No, that's in Cedar.
Oh, in Cedar. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, they lived in Cedar. But those 15 kids and all taking turns of dancing
Wow.
with each other.
Is that barn still
And
there?
Polish food. Whew, you couldn't believe it.
Is the barn still
Is the
there?
barn still there?
I
Cedar?
imagine, yes, I think it is. That was on Uncle Paul and Aunt Josie's farm. The last time Carrie and Judy and I went down there, it was there yet. Of course, other people lived there, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was old enough to understand. I learned to dance that night because my uncles were all good dancers. All of them were good food. They were all good cooks and dancers. Well, my uncle didn't matter if we were 10 or 12 or 14 or 2. Pick us up and dance. And because they had the fiddle and the banjo and whatever, the old polka music, and mostly polka. And I learned to dance that night, I think, that weekend.
If you do think of other things, make another list.
Okay.
We could get together again in a few weeks.
Oh, that'd be good if I could. But see, I was so young.
Yeah.
My sisters were older, 8 and 10 years older than me. And they had boyfriends, and they could remember and things that I didn't pay attention to at that time. But those things do stick in my mind, especially that night of the lioness. That always sticks in my head. Yeah, it was, but life goes on. And I don't know, nobody around here, I'm the only one left. I guess there's a reason, but I don't know what. But I've had a good life and I've had a hard life, but a happy one. So I had a good husband, a good kid. That's all you need.
That's right.
That's all you need in this world.
Right. Thank you so much for telling your story today.
Oh,
We appreciate
I'm
it.
sorry I cried.
Oh,